Hi, everybody, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Nikki.
And today we're looking at logos. Logos are these kind of small designs with words, with pictures that appear pretty much everywhere in our lives. And they tell you who something is made by, who it belongs to, and sometimes a little something about the product. And they are everywhere. If you take a look around the room you're in at the moment, you can probably see a few different logos. Nikki, what can you see?
I see a blue bag with IKEA logo on it. And it's yellow and it's like square words. And also I see this YSL Yves Saint Laurent perfume has this YSL on it.
Right, because sometimes a logo can be a set of words, sometimes it's just a few letters, sometimes it's a picture, like this computer and a couple of other things around me right now have the Apple logo on it because they are Apple products. I also have a mouse with a Microsoft logo on it. That's just writing, but the way the letters are written, the font they use, that's all part of the logo as well.
Design.
And often logos, a lot of thought goes into the logos that we see every day. They're not just accidents. They've had people, designers working on them. And today we're going to take a look at some famous ones and talk a little bit about them and their design. Let's read through the article.
Reading.
The science of logo design. How many brand logos do you know? To give you an idea, the average person sees around 5,000 advertisements a day. Almost all of these contain logos. Logos are always fighting for our attention. So, a huge amount of effort is put into making logos that are attractive and easy to remember. However, not all logos appear to be perfectly made. For example, in 7-Eleven's logo, notice that the letter N is the only lowercase letter. One idea is the logo will look too strong with every letter in uppercase. It's also possible that the curved lowercase n simply fits with the curved 7. Another example is Google's G. If you look long enough, you'll notice it doesn't make a perfect circle. Interestingly, our brains wouldn't actually think a perfect circle will look round. That's because humans are not very good at recognizing geometry. Next time you see the Nintendo Switch logo, try measuring the two controllers above the word Nintendo. You might be surprised.
So the article begins with a question. It asks people, how many brand logos do you know? So a brand it could be a product that's made by a company, or it could be the whole company itself. Some companies have more than one brand. So Apple is a company, it has the Apple brand. But then another company, for example, like Acer in Taiwan, has its own brand Acer, and a couple of other brands. The Predator computers for gaming, that's one of their brands. They have a few others as well. So a brand is kind of how people think about this particular company or model or set of products. And it's all the qualities associated with that product. The brand kind of communicates a message to them about it. And sometimes people will know the brand, but they won't actually know the name of the company that makes the brand, because the brand is what customers are more familiar with and what they buy. Here's an example sentence for brand. I love the Nike brand. All the shoes and a lot of other clothes I buy are Nike.
课文一开始就问我们说，我们到底知道多少品牌的商标？那 brand 是名词，指的就是品牌或者是牌子。Just like you probably have a preference in terms of shampoo brands. 例句说，我爱 Nike 这个牌子，那很多我买的衣服跟鞋子都是 Nike 的。And I think this is called brand loyalty. It's a habit that you always buy things from a certain brand. Okay, so here we know that most brands will have a logo.
Yeah, a logo, like we said in our introduction, is the kind of small little badge or the name or something like that that goes with a particular brand or product. Now, sometimes companies will often have a logo with the company's name. Their brands will have separate logos, but even things like sports teams and other organizations might have a logo. Think of the badge you see on a lot of soccer shirts or baseball shirts that kind of has maybe a picture, the team's name, something like that. That is also a logo.
Logo 就是公司的商标或者是标志，那通常就是为了要让你看到这个图就想到他们的产品。那像是苹果的产品呢，就会有一个被咬一颗的苹果，那 Nike 就会是一个勾勾，像是艾迪达就会是三叶草等等，都是他们设计的 logo. And in our introduction, introduce many logos.
That's right, we looked at quite a few. So let's look at the next part of the article, which says, to give you an idea, the average person sees around 5,000 advertisements a day. Now, this word you can say advertisements or advertisements, it's fine. We can just say ads for short. But basically, this shows how common logos are. You see around 5,000 ads a day, or most people do, and almost all of those ads will have a logo. Now, this is talking about the average person. If someone's an average person, they're just pretty normal. They have an ordinary kind of job, or they're an ordinary kind of student. There's nothing particularly special or different about them. Now, if you were working in an advertising company, you would probably see a lot more than 5,000 logos a day, but then you wouldn't be the kind of average person we're talking about. Average just means normal, typical, regular, nothing really different. For example, we could say, Joe is an average student. He spends a lot of time on homework, enjoys video games and basketball, and is tired a lot.
Average 是形容词，在这边指的是平凡的或者是一般的。那如果我们说某一个人他是 an average student， 那指的就是他是一个非常普通的学生，可能成绩没有说特别好，或者是特别差。那 average 还有另外一个意思呢，是平均数，就像是考完试之后，老师可能会说一个班上的平均，那可以让大家去看看自己是 below average 还是 above average。
Okay, so you see a lot of advertisements, around 5,000, and as the article says, almost all of these contain logos.
And next, the article says logos are always fighting for our attention.
Right, Nikki talked about brand loyalty. The logos and the companies behind them want us to buy their stuff. So each logo is trying to be better, more interesting, brighter, basically get our attention better than the others around there. Which is why the next sentence says, so a huge amount of effort is put into making logos that are attractive and easy to remember. So in this sentence, we see the word huge, a huge amount of effort. Huge means very large. It could mean large in size. It could mean large in amount. So it could describe a real thing, like the blue whale is a huge animal. But it can also describe something abstract, like here, effort. A huge amount of effort is a lot of effort, a lot of work. Here's another example sentence for huge. The huge truck has enough space to hold over 1,000 computers.
接着课文就说，那这些商标是为了要引起大家的注意，所以设计这些商标是很费时费力的。Huge 是形容词，指的就是极高的或者是巨大的。那在这边指的呢，就是很多很多的心力被投注在设计商标这件事情上。那我们也可以用 enormous 来表示极大的。Both huge and enormous can mean extremely large.
Right, and we also say a huge amount of effort is put into doing something. So if you put something in something or put something into doing something, this means you do some work, you make an effort, you actually try to achieve something, and in order to get an output, you have to put in an input. So effort and work and time and money is put into something, and you get a result. Products, work, a fancy new logo.
Put something in or something into something 指的就是花费大量的时间或者是精力去做某件事情。通常我们会说 put in a lot of work or put in a lot of time doing something 指的就有点像是 spend a lot of time doing something. And the articles tells us that the effort is put in to make the logos attractive.
That's right. If something is attractive, then it is nice to look at. It's pleasing to the eye in some way. It makes you think, oh, that's pretty nice, that's pretty cool. Now we can describe a person as attractive if they're handsome or if they're beautiful, or if they've just got a nice smile and they're very kind. We can say that person is attractive. We find them pleasing to look at or be with or something like that. We can describe a building as attractive if it looks good. It's got a nice shape, it's got nice lines, it could be colors, it could be decorations. If it looks good, if it looks pleasing on the eye, then it is attractive. For example, we could say, these new plants and flowers make your garden particularly attractive.
Attractive 是形容词，指的是吸引人的或者是有魅力的。那我们很常会用这个字来形容人，但是呢，它也可以用来形容一件事情。For example, I find that the actor particularly attractive, or we can say, the headhunter made an attractive offer. 指的就是说，给我一个很有吸引力的提议。那所以就是某个演员很有魅力，或者是某一个提议很吸引人。例句说，这些新的花花草草让你的花园看起来格外有吸引力。
So let's take a look at the next sentence in the article. And now we might expect if something is going to be an attractive logo, it should be perfect. It should be absolutely right in every detail with nothing wrong. But as the article says, however, not all logos appear to be perfectly made.
Let's find out more about this. The article says, for example, in 7-Eleven's logo, notice that the letter N is the only lowercase letter.
That's right. With many alphabets, we see that there are lowercase and uppercase letters. Lowercase is the small ones. Uppercase or capital letters appear maybe at the start of a sentence or at the start of a proper noun. In the word Taiwan, you usually have T as an uppercase letter and the A-I-W-A-N as lowercase, smaller letters.
接着呢，课文就说，并不是所有的商标都是被设计的完美，像是 7-Eleven 的 logo， 我们会发现只有字母 N 是小写，那 lowercase 指的就是小写，反之 uppercase 呢，指的就是大写，或者是我们也可以说是 capital letters。
That's right. So why does 7-Eleven have this one small letter, lowercase letter N? The article has an idea about that and says one idea is the logo would look too strong with every letter in uppercase. Uppercase, of course, means those big, powerful-looking capital letters. And yeah, if you type everything in all uppercase, if you're using Line or Facebook, the kind of idea is someone is shouting if they're using all caps or all uppercase.
所以说，为什么课文就说，那为什么会这样设计呢？就是因为如果所有的字母都是大写的话，视觉上可能会看起来太强烈。Now, it's true, because when you want to scream at someone through text, you can use all capital letters to do that.
Right, yeah. If I get one of those messages, I know I'm in a little bit of trouble. So that's one idea about these. Let's take a look at another possible idea for why the N is lowercase. The next sentence in the article says, it's also possible that the curved lowercase n simply fits with the curved 7. So a lowercase n has got a curve in it rather than straight pointy lines. And maybe that just looks right with the curved 7. It's just a matter of balance of how the logo appears when you see it. I guess they tried it with an uppercase N. It didn't quite work. It didn't look as good. Yeah, the lowercase one just looked better.
Here's another example of a logo that's not perfect. The article says another example is Google's G.
Okay, so you could probably just pause this video and have a quick look at a Google logo on the web page. And the article points out something you might notice. If you look long enough, you'll notice this G, doesn't make a perfect circle. So it's not exactly round. It's, it's slightly longer than it is wider, that kind of thing.
And why is this? The article says, interestingly, our brains wouldn't actually think a perfect circle would look round.
That's pretty odd. So our brains would look at a real circle and say, that's not round.
That's not a circle.
Yeah, that's not a circle. There's something wrong. But we'll look at a one that isn't round and say, yeah, that looks right.
That's
but
round.
Why is this? The truth is, as our article says, that's because humans are not very good at recognizing geometry. We'll talk about that more longer, complicated word in a moment, but first let's look at the word recognize. To recognize is when you see something or maybe hear or even smell or taste something and you know what it is. Mostly this is because you've experienced it before. You go, I know that smell, or I know that person. I've seen that person before and my brain tells me the information. Now, sometimes you can recognize something just because you've read or studied or heard about this thing enough. So, for example, I have never seen a Tasmanian devil, this creature that lives in Australia. But I've read about them, I've heard about them, and if I saw one, I'd probably go, I think I know what that is. I kind of recognize it. Exactly. You could say, I almost didn't recognize Nikki because she's got longer hair than the last time I saw her. I was like, whoa, she looks different. Is that really Nikki? So that's what we mean by recognize. Here's another example. When I went to the zoo, I didn't recognize some of the rarer animals. You go, hang on, what's that? And you have to look at the little piece of information to find out what it is.
Recognize 是动词，指的就是分辨或者是认出来。那课文呢告诉我们，其实我们人类并不是很擅长分辨几何的图案，所以如果我们说 I recognize something， 指的就是我知道它是什么，我可以讲出它的名字。For example, a lot of people couldn't recognize me on the street when I first got my haircut. 就像我刚剪短头发的时候，走在路上，人家可能都会认不出来。And what we say here is that people don't recognize geometry well.
That's right. So geometry is kind of an area of study. It's kind of an area of, it's sort of like science, but there's a lot of math in there as well. It's the study of the relationship of lines, points, curves, surfaces. It's all about shapes and structures and whether things are round or curved or like parallel to each other or not parallel and the directions they go in, that kind of thing.
Geometry 是名词，指的就是几何学，那也就是跟几何图案相关的东西，像是圈圈啊，或者是线条，或者是方块等等。
Okay, so let's go back to the article and we're going to introduce another logo. It says, next time you see the Nintendo Switch logo, try measuring the two controllers above the word Nintendo. Okay, so here we're talking about a controller. A controller is some kind of device that you use to control, which is where the word comes from, another thing. And sometimes there's a wire connecting them, sometimes it's wireless. This mouse that I used in our introduction, that is a controller for the little thing on my screen that moves around and clicks on things. If you have an AC unit, you have a remote control, which is a kind of controller for that. Turns it on, turns it off, and changes the temperature. We often talk about controllers with video games. They're the things you use when you play the video games to move the person on the screen, to make them fight or jump or run or drive a car, to do all the other things that you need to do to start a game, to play a game, and to beat a game. The famous one, most kind of like two hands, you use one thumb to do one thing and some fingers to do another thing. Most of the controllers I played with as a kid are a lot simpler compared to the ones you get these days. So here's one example of how we can use it in a sentence. Toby took one controller, gave the other to his friend Sam, and they started to play.
Controller 指的就是控制器，但是通常呢，指的是在玩游戏的时候用到的控制器。那像是这里呢，就是会说 Switch 用到的那两个东西就是 controller。那如果我们要说是电器的遥控器的话呢，像是电视或者是冷气的遥控器，我们可能就可以说是 remote control 或者是 remote。那例句说，Toby 拿了一个控制器，把另外一个给他的朋友 Sam， 然后他们就开始玩了。
Okay, so you've got to look at this. If you happen to have a Switch or you see one in a store, take a look at the logo and take a look at the controllers. As our article says, you might be surprised.
Why?
Well, let's not give it away, but it's all to do with imperfect logo design, and in some ways, it'll probably help the overall appearance. Maybe you'd expect them both to be the same size, and maybe they're not exactly the same size, but that'll help with the other words and images in the logo. We'll let you go and check that out for yourselves, but right now, we're going to go to today's For You chat question.
You chat.
So today's chat question is, what's the first logo that you think of? What about its design makes it special? So have a think. What's a big logo that's important in your life or really common? And what do you notice about its design?
When I first when I first look at the logo, the Apple logo, I noticed the bite on it, and I tried to Google it. It's like, why is it there? Why is it a bite there? And then it says, actually, it's just for the logo to look less like a cherry.
Ah, okay. That's a good reason.
Is it? Because I thought it was like something more.
More than that? You could maybe read into it if you want. You know, maybe it talks about, people being involved with it or something like that. You take a bite, you use these products. One I think of, and you guys, students, might have to Google this, it's a logo for a company called Games Workshop. And this is a company that started in my hometown, and they make board games, they make models of kind of soldiers and monsters and wizards, and I spent hours and lots of money as a kid playing with these. And this logo is kind of yellow with sort of black and red in the background, so it's very vivid, it stands out. And they've had a few different logos, but right now it's got a very pointy, sharp logo. All the letters have sharp points, and that kind of matches with this idea of kind of war and battles and weapons and soldiers, which is what most of the games are about. So it kind of looks like a little bit sort of scary and violent in this logo, but that's actually what you want for this particular company and its product. Whereas the colors are bright, the bright yellow kind of draws you in. It also relates to some of their other products. And then red and black are kind of cool colors, so it communicates that as well. So there's a lot going on in that logo, but it always stands out, and it does have a personal meaning for me. Okay, but that's all the time we've had for you guys. Think about what logos you know, and what do you know about them? Why do you think they were designed that way? But we're out of time, so thanks for watching. For everybody, for English for You, I'm Pat.
I'm Nikki.
And we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review. Brand. Coca-Cola is the most popular soda in the world, so it's a very famous brand. Average. On an average day, I spend 8 hours working in the office. Huge. Deborah's latest novel is a huge success. It sold out in just 1 week. Attractive. The apartment building wasn't attractive on the outside, but the apartments inside all look great. Recognize. I recognize this author's name but haven't read any of her books yet. Controller. My brother and I both picked up our controllers and played a video game together.
智慧小补帖
Logo. Lowercase. Uppercase. Geometry.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作。活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net